community is definitely something that everyone craves and everyone wants. But sometimes when we are misled by, advertising, courses, things like that, it can be very misleading in this industry. So this episode, I want to talk about what community really means and why we started our Patreon, and not to, talk about anybody else, but just why we started this specific platform, because it is what we felt like was missing in our industry.
Yeah, I think a lot of industries are missing true community. As niches get bigger and industries get really big, it's really easy for people to get pulled apart and feel like it's everybody's competition. And I think especially in this aesthetic space, it's interesting because it become like an influencer space.
Yeah.
And I don't have anything against that, but it also, when everyone was in their own lane getting their own clients, it was really easy for everyone to go, hey, we're all good. Like, we're on the same page.
Yeah.
But then overnight, it's now we're kind of battling for brand deals, right? Now
Totally.
it's you're picking you over somebody else. And then when you see somebody else get a brand deal, human nature, jealousy why couldn't that be me?
And I think the biggest thing when you have a platform, the first thing a lot of people think of is, okay, how can I utilize this to make money? And while that's great, I think that people just jump to things too quick. And that's where the community gets lost, because it is thinking about how you can make the quickest buck.
Yeah.
And we may all have good intentions, but I think that, why we started our Patreon was to just make it more than just a course, and that we can have that community. So if you have questions after you watch, a video or a course, you can have continued support and other people in the industry as well.
Yeah, even going, and we can dive more into why we started the Patreon as well. But I even think about that idea when it comes to like brand deals, like kind of circling back to me just mentioning that. I was just thinking about even the way we've said no to a lot of brand deals that would have made us a quick buck, but we were afraid it was going to, jeopardize the community. And we've even done brand deals, and I don't really know. I've never we don't have any crazy contract brand deals, but I'm like, when can we talk about them and feel comfortable?
Yeah.
Like, hey, this brand deal specifically, I'd like to talk about that eventually. I just don't, it feels uncomfortable. It's a new conversation. But anyway, we've been really careful about what brand deals we've taken on to make sure that, not all of them was your favorite thing in the world, but we've never gotten behind anything that you didn't genuinely go, this is a good product.
Yeah. Or this is crap.
Yeah. Like you
I offer LED light therapy already. I have a million LED light therapy. Yeah, LED companies reach out to me, and I'm like, I already have something.
And you're
that
happy with yours. Yeah. So why jump onto theirs just for a quick buck? And so I think those, and I don't think people realize that when you do grow and you do start taking those brand deals, you're jeopardizing your community, because then now your community is starting to lose trust in you because they're feeling like they're constantly sold to. So people got on to follow you. And we're even careful with this about how we promote our Patreon, is that we are creating something amazing, but we also don't want to feel like if you follow us, you have to be a part of that. Like we still want to pour into people, even through socials, and, give as much away as we possibly can. And of course, make a living for ourselves. But, and there's so many pros to us building the community on Patreon as well. But we overthink that a lot.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it's definitely something that we definitely overthink everything. And something that I'm really happy about, and something that I would recommend for everyone, is whatever you do, just making sure it is authentic. Because again, we have said no to so many brand deals because it just didn't feel right and it wasn't on brand for us. And when you are, promoting your services, that's great. But if you're kind of changing your page to let's say you're trying to sell to clients, and then you get a following, and now you're selling to, people in your community, your esthetician or whatever field you're in, it's important to not blow up people's feed, to making sure that they're feeling sold, to make them not feel like they're sold.
Yeah. And I think there's ways to do it. And I'm okay with transitioning your brand. I mean, a rebrand is always okay, because even for us, we are kind of slightly in a rebrand, and we're being very careful because you still do take clients. But yeah, and this is more just advice to anybody who's growing, and what we've seen from other people make the mistake. and that everyone's just going to leave. Everyone's going to be confused. The people who stuck with you from the beginning, who maybe were never going to buy from you, but that engaged, the minute you start promoting something that they never signed on for, are either going to stop engaging or they're going to unfollow. Yeah. So it's not necessarily just bad for, kind of your ego, but it's just bad for the people who care, and it's bad for your engagement. So be really careful about the way you rebrand and how kind of hardcore you kind of flip that switch and go, now I'm this, because people are like, well, we didn't follow you for that. Right. And we've talked about this with going viral. It's kind of that same idea. When you go viral for something that's not on brand for you and everyone comes in, your next post that's not like that, they're like, wait a second, I thought you were silly.
Yes, no. Definitely. And I think that community can look different. And for a lot of people, when you're like, for instance, when we were first growing, community to us meant engaging with local community, and we still do, of course, but to grow our Instagram and get clients in the door, community for us looked like strictly engaging with local clients in the door versus now community is we have a platform. So we're trying to utilize it to actually bring community to the space, which is something, again, I mean, I have so many people reach out to me that are like, oh my gosh, do you offer a course? And for so long, I didn't because it didn't feel like authentic. It didn't feel like I was ready. And, we can have that separate conversation if you're truly ready. But there was a point where I was like, you know what, let's just do it. But
then even
bring
exploring like where
space.
we did it and how we did it was different, because we didn't just do a typical course. Right. And I think that's why we're on Patreon, to build that community base, rather than we didn't feel comfortable just selling people a course, because we've taken courses before and have been like, you feel like it wasn't all the way there. It feels like it's
kind of surface level of, and maybe, and everybody's at different levels when they're growing. So let's say somebody took that course and they're, already advanced. So they're taking that information and they're growing 10 times faster versus somebody who's brand new and they have no idea what they're doing. So this was just like a sliver of the piece of the, there's so many missing pieces in my opinion.
And that's what's cool about what we've built, is that we can have a mixture of everything on there, and that stuff is constantly coming out. It gives a chance for people who are like, I'm taking my next step, and then people taking their first step. And I think it's really difficult to build a course that way. And I think even the way you price, because getting like a little markety now, like if we were to build a one-off course and we are selling it to established estheticians who were going from, $80,000 to $200,000 a year, I would price that much higher, right? That would be something that I go, we can charge $1,000 for this. But if we're talking about getting somebody fresh out of school to figure out where the heck to go, how to start their social media, should they work for somebody else, what those steps actually look like, you can't charge that, right? You have to charge accordingly to somebody who's like, I just paid $20,000 for school. I can't go. And everyone can find money, but it's not for them, right? So I think what we built here was hopefully we're only a month in, but the long-term goal with this would to be a mixture of everything. And then we have some really fun ideas for the long term of actually connecting the community much more. And we have our chats in there right now that people are able to talk with each other. But the long term goal is to really connect those together, get some in-person meetings in the future with people who are part of the Patreon, and really get the 10-year esthetician and the 1-year esthetician in the same room and let them learn from each other. Because we've seen in our space too, your mentor, who's a 20-year esthetician, she's lost on social media, but she crushes it with clients, right? And her results are insane, but she can't figure out how to post a before and after, right?
But then speak on Instagram.
Exactly. But then a 1-year esthetician could have all that figured out, dialed in, but just can't figure out how to, treat the client the best way possible, the correct formulations, right? So I think us being able to mix those two together is really what our long-term goal is for that.
I mean, it is something that is very unique to this space. And that's why I feel like the first 2 weeks was a little bit confusing for people who are like, what the heck is Patreon? What are you guys doing on there? But we have, I think now 127 members, and it's just so cool to see this community grow and how grateful people are of the space. And not being a one-off course, which is really cool and really unique. And we're able to pour into people authentically, and it's just such a different feel. I mean, it brings us happiness to be able to connect with people and help their business, because I also think a huge part of it is that if you know us, we know that that we started with 0 clients in a new state with no clientele. So we just have such a different heart, I guess, a different perspective. And that may not resonate with everyone. That's okay. But it truly is hard. It's when you start, even if you have a base of clients, it's hard to market yourself. It's hard to know what the right and wrong thing is to do. And, there's a lot of information out there. So for you to like invest, let's say like $1,000 into a course, you're like, I say that whatever you invest in, like it should be valuable, but at the same time, like, I mean, it just does save that, that cringe in your heart if you did pay for something and you're like, wow, this wasn't what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. And I think with us, with how many videos we're releasing and the direct support that people get, we're also just creating something where, it's a low monthly fee. They can get in. And if you get a client a month, as long as you're on the Patreon, it's paid for, right? Which is a really easy kind of like hand in hand. I guess this is kind of turning into almost just like a full on, brand video about, like our sponsored video. It's definitely sponsored by Patreon, but we won't do our sponsored ad read this time because I think you're getting it already. But I think as a whole, going back to just kind of like the community and how people crave community, and it's difficult on Instagram because then you have to be in the right group messages with the right people, and then like what group messages are the right group messages, and there's
some amazing ones out there. I'm actually a part of one that's like super sweet to see that community on Instagram, but it's
there. It's just difficult to find. And I think in our long-term goal is to create something really big in a big space that people can kind of go like, that's the hub of conversation. And that's where we can have it organized, easy to use, user friendly. And we're taking steps currently to get there. And the Patreon right now is just kind of what's funding all the back end work, because it took a long time to get off the ground with a Patreon. Yeah. So now it's like our next step is going to take a little while as well.
But I just want to, if you've made it this far, number one, thank you so much for your support and just always being here. If you're part of the Patreon or not, thank you so much for just following us along our journey and I just love getting to know you guys and connecting with you guys. And then another thing that I wanted to mention before we end this podcast is we have some exciting collaborations coming up in our Patreon exclusively. So we can't say just yet, but we will announce soon that there's some big estheticians that we're partnering with, and it will be available to you guys to explore this,
You're trying to dance around without saying it.
I know, it's really hard. But we're partnering with some big estheticians. We're super excited. That will be available soon. I can't say the details, so I don't even know where I'm going with this. But make sure you join the Patreon if you aren't already. But thank you guys so much for your support and just being here. Is there anything else that you had to say?
Yeah, this is the last thing I wanted to say.
I'm working